Thanks to all that showed up early and on time. We're going to give people a couple minutes to dial in. Thanks again for being on time. I think we'll probably start about 5 after the hour. All right. Uh, Meet Echo is telling me I can't send video, so I'm not going to. So apologies, you're only going to hear my voice today and see the screens. Thank you for showing up to an MLS interim after we got a bunch of IHG discussing comments on our two documents that we put forward. The plan here today is to kind of go through those and see how far we can progress these. One of the overriding factors here is that we'd like to get these done so that when the new ISG gets seated in, it gets next month during the IETF meeting, that we don't have to redo this again. So there's a little bit of a time crunch here to see if we can get these resolved before the end of March. I don't think that's going to be a problem, but that's just something to keep in mind. And again, this is an official IETF meeting. Um, we have a note well, which is policies and procedures that we need to follow during the meetings. A lot of them relate to IPR. Basically, if you know something, say something. If you have any questions about that, I can fill you in. There's a place to do third-party IPR disclosures, etc. There's also an anti-harassment procedures and code of conduct and all that stuff. And luckily, this working group has had none of those problems, but I do feel compelled to talk about them. All right, what's on the next slide? And code of conduct guidelines, right? Treat colleagues with respect, speak slowly and limit the use of slang, dispute ideas by using reasoned arguments, use best engineering judgment, find the best solution for the whole of the internet, and contribute to the ongoing work of the group and the IETF. And keep that in mind that we need to do it both here in Meet Echo, Zulip. I guess I need to change my slide. And when you're on the call. All right, so that's all the fun stuff with respect to the beginning, and hopefully it's given enough time for others to join after my grand monologue. Good, I see Joel there. I guess, Richard, where would you like to start?
So I have one PR. So I think on the protocol document, we're pretty good to go. There was one PR I put in yesterday I'd like to discuss. Before we dive into the documents, though, while you're pulling it up, wanted to make a brief mention that there is some interop testing going on. So between MLSPP and OpenMLS and the Wicker stack, we may even get participation. And the INRIA stack, and we may even get participation from Ring Central. We are doing some testing to make sure all of those stacks are implementing the same processes, implementing everything in the spec the same way. We've already found a whole bunch of bugs where people were using 1 byte for 2 byte fields and things like that. So we're going to have a call on that tomorrow, which I'll send a note to the list and let people know, just to have some focused real-time time on it. But in general, the MLS implementations repo, things are going on there. So I'll pay attention to that. And we also have a channel in the IETF Slack instance, ietf.slack.com, where we're doing some coordination. I'll send a note to the list after this monologue with a bunch of these details. But feel free to ping me if you'd be interested in participating in interop stuff, and I can get you looped in. Happy to have more implementations there.
One other thing that I forgot to do again is to request a scribe. I was hoping someone could take some notes for me.
I can take some notes.
That'd be great. Again, it's only like kind of the high points, and you've done it before, and that'd be great. So that I can actually put something in the official record. Fantastic. So without further ado, where should we dive into?
So I think most of these we're pretty clear on. There's no need for discussion. The one I was just going to put in front of people's eyes was at the top there, number 855, clarifying the transcript hash initialization.
Ooh,
so
fancy.
This came up in the process of interop testing, but not because we had interop bugs, just because we were looking at the right part of the spec. Looking at if you could flip over to the diff view, I think that's probably better. So the salient part here is the top part. The old transcript hash description didn't actually tell you how to initialize things. I'm surprised that the initialization condition there at the top says epoch and not 0. So it didn't actually tell you how to initialize things, and in particular, it didn't tell you how to initialize the interim transcript hash. So the updated version says that you initialize both the interim and confirm to 0 length strings, and then you roll forward in the way discussed. So this doesn't change the behavior. I think it just describes it more clearly. I think there was no disagreement about what the correct behavior was. It's just a clarification of the description. It also adds a figure that tries to, show a timeline view of what goes into which transcript hashes. That, as Conrad pointed out, is a little hard to capture with exactness, but may be helpful in helping people understand what's going on here. Yeah, the better view of the figure is on the overview where I put a screenshot in. So happy to have any comments on this. This is mainly a clarification, not a behavior change. So it's not a huge deal. But if folks have any thoughts or comments on this, once Conrad and I get happy about the figure, we can. I think we can probably just go ahead and merge this, unless there's any comments here. Raphael, I see you unmuted.
Yes, it's a bit weird in Meetecho when you mute yourself. Like 2 seconds of silence first. Yeah, I think it's worth noting that, as you said, this was not an interrupt problem because we have been interrupting for a while around that part of the spec. At least between MLSPP and OpenMLS. Right. I don't know if folks can hear me.
Sorry, could you say that last part again, Raphael? Your audio cut out a little bit.
Sorry. Yeah, I think it's worth emphasizing that we had agreement on that in the implementations, and that this is just a clarification.
Yeah.
Well, if we're not hearing any major objections, I'm thinking we let this. All right, Brendan, good. Go ahead.
Oh, hi. I was going to ask if there was any concern about the graph being too wide to render properly, because if you look at the spec rendered as like a just text document, this graph is about twice as wide as basically everything else.
Yeah, in the HTML rendering, it conveniently shrinks the SVG down to be the appropriate width, but yeah, the text rendering would be unhappy. I don't know, I might fiddle with it and maybe like render it vertically to get to help with that. Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't think it's necessarily a deal breaker to script the text rendering, because the official thing nowadays is XML and HTML. So I don't know if we'll be forbidden from publishing if we have a too wide diagram. But we can always trim it back to 1 or 2 epochs if we need to be narrower.
This also seems like a perfectly good. All right, RC editor, how best should I fix this? Can we spin this in some easy way? So
yeah.
All right, great. So I guess what we'll do is we'll basically say that we have tentative agreement to go ahead and merge this modulo, the two of you, making sure you get comfortable with the graph, or if anybody else wants to chime in.
Okay.
All right.
So I think that's the only one that needed discussion on the protocol draft. Unless anyone else wanted to look at any of those other issues.
Sorry, there is, I think it's 844.
844.
Oh, sorry, it's not loading for me. It's just like a cleanup of the transition to public and private message.
Doing it now. Here it comes, and it's giving me a unicorn. Look at that.
Yeah, I got one.
It's an angry unicorn at that. Try it again.
Look happy.
Okay, what is going on?
Not look happy.
Come on,
GitHub is getting jealous of Twitter in their downtime.
Oh, wow.
Oh, there it is. Yeah, it's 844. Cleanup after plain text and ciphertext renaming. It's all just minor stuff, but it's names or labels, so.
Yeah, I think I reviewed that and I think it's good to go. I just didn't hit the approve button.
All right. That's all then.
There we go.
Yes. Yeah, that's a good point. Thanks for filing that, Conrad.
All right, so we're going to move on to architecture as this thing tries to load.
Yeah, and it looks like Rowan made it in. I think he was having trouble getting through the data
All right.
tracker.
Hey, yeah, I've had a problem with my data tracker account because it was merged. There were two accounts which were merged, and so
Fun ensues.
have a few problems with
So-
it sometimes.
All right,
I
so
think
we've
Rowan
done.
has been paying more. I think Rowan's been paying more attention to the architecture than I have, so I'm going to let him kind of lead the discussion there.
Let's so we just got through two on the, we did 855 and 844, and the rest of them are, I think, all just kind of dealing with whatever comments we got, right? And it changed the
So
look, so it looks reasonable.
yeah, if you look at the there's one. You're still on protocol, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you want me to switch over? 'Cause I think Rich
I'm
was
ready.
doing anybody.
I didn't catch any of the discussion on protocol. I heard somebody say we were ready to switch to architecture. So
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
I think we're done with protocol.
yeah, so I was just clarifying that we talked about 855 and it looks good to go. Long as Richard and Raphael agree to the figure. At 844, Conrad said, don't forget about this one. And Richard said he just forgot to hit the button. So the rest of them are all, I think, between 844 and 855 are all basically just dealing with various things from the ISG review.
cool. Yeah, I tracked a lot of that offline, so it looked good to me.
All right, great.
And
Protocol.
while I've got my mic on, thanks to everyone who did reviews there. It really helped us move more quickly.
All right, so where are we going? Pull requests?
Yeah, please.
Okay. All right, I will take direction.
Okay, so with let's just start with 182. That's the bottom one. So this was basically there was one comment about there not being enough explanation of what is in of what these various terms are that are used in architecture that are defined in protocol. So if you go to files changed, you can see I initially did this as a glossary. Ecker said he didn't like that. I rewrote it in a narrative style and I liked it better as well. And I think there was one comment by Britta about how we want to describe a leaf package, the leaf node that goes inside of a key package. I had its leaf node, and she proposed including an initiation leaf node. I'm fine with either. Anyone have any strong feelings here? I'm inclined to just make include it the way Britta recommended.
Yeah, the only reason for this suggestion is so that it kind of implying some sort of time scale to this, so that's not just a static. I could see where someone could read this spec and see including its leaf node as if it was static across multiple initiations, or the various ways this could be misinterpreted. So I just propose that we have some sort of initiation there, or other start point.
Yeah, that makes sense to me, that it's an initial leaf node, so that's the first representation of the client in the tree.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that it's clear, like that it doesn't cause more questions than it answers. If other people think that looks good, then I will go ahead and make that change, and we'll need somebody else to click the button.
Richard, can we leave that to you, or is there additional we got to make Benjamin do it.
So what would you be looking for me to do?
Okay,
If he
so-
makes a change to merge it.
Oh yeah, I can push the button.
All right.
So I just committed. Sorry, almost done. So I just committed that suggestion. It is applied to that PR. So if you push the button on 182, then that'll include Britta's
Okay.
change.
I'll go back through and do that in a minute.
Okay. All right. So let's move to 183. Or actually, do we want to let's look at 187 and make sure that I think that this is non-controversial. I think this is just let's click the button to fix people's email addresses.
The background here is we were getting a lot of bounces, and I was getting a lot of hate mail from the ISG. So I basically just rummaged through my emails to find ones that were fixable and fix them. That's probably past the point of pain, but I think we should go ahead and fix them where we can.
Yeah, agreed.
All right.
All right. So the big one here is 183.
Sorry, I was going to ask, just is that one person still at Twitter?
No, they'd
They're
left,
not.
so that's why I changed it. But it didn't say to
But-
change his affiliation, so I left it.
He said not to change it? Okay.
Well, he didn't mention it, so he left it. I can actually reach out and ask him if he wants to get it changed completely before we publish.
I think that would probably be a good idea.
Okay. Okay, fair enough.
Okay. So so on 183, if you open up files changed, there are quite a few changes in here, but they are all related to one of three AD reviews. And if you'd like, we can look first at the discusses, or I can just walk through these one at a time. But if we walk through the files changed, so if we start at the very beginning here, there was a comment about using for key transparency, about having a reference to something generic. And so Richard recommended this paper on Conics, and there was an error in the reference for one of the tree chem references, which I fixed. Moving down to line 248. There was the question of like, is this a requirement or not a requirement? So this just was changed to end-to-end security is used in the vast majority of instant messaging systems and also deployed in systems for other purposes, such as calling and conferencing. So it makes it clear that most IM systems are using end-to-end security, and that you can use it for other, and you can use end-to-end security in other systems, which I think was what we meant all along. Then we can skip. Most of these are just rewording changes. There was a question about the scale, about being consistent on scale. So in line 272 and in every other place, I used tens of thousands. Is everybody okay with that scale in the architecture document?
Yeah, I think the Matrix folks are actively testing at that scale.
Yeah.
Now? Okay. With AirPods, it doesn't work at all. So yeah, going back to the end-to-end security, that would actually be the place where ideally we would plug in this IETF definition of end-to-end encryption, but I don't think it's finalized yet. The one from Mallory and Sophia. Maybe worth checking. It's Sean, from a former perspective, we cannot reference anything that is not an RFP yet, right?
Sorry, I missed that last bit. We can reference anything that
that is not a finalized RFC yet.
So it depends. If it's informational, we can. So if it's a normative reference and it's informational, or if it's a normative reference and it's not an RFC, then we have to wait for that other one to get published. But if it's informational, then we can proceed.
Okay, that's a good point. I'm gonna check on that, and then I can comment on the PR. To your other point, Ron, we have this number of 50K so far. I think it's even in the charter, if I remember correctly, and it's completely arbitrary. I think John Milliken made it up at the time. So in that sense, there is no good reason to stick to that particular number. And tens of thousands works. I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is mostly about scale, right? So like thousands, people are like 10, and we're like, no, more. So I think that works as long as we're consistent and everybody kind of agrees. And if people are actually already testing at that level, then I think the proof's in the pudding, so to speak.
And yeah, and maybe that's a good occasion to settle on that wording in general, because it's something that's been coming back as a question for years now. Like how big can a group be with MLS? And well, we can say that technically, of course, it can be as up to 1 billion now, but that makes no sense whatsoever. So agreeing on saying tens of thousands is a good thing, like across the board, not just in this particular part of the architecture spec.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the point is that for the architecture, we need to have something, and it's, everybody. I think everybody is comfortable with saying that we want to do at least that, and if people want to say, this is what we envisioned, this is what we thought of. But if we're going to go bigger than that, there's probably additional. There are almost certainly additional things that we would need to do that are not in the protocol yet, but we could add them.
Yeah.
So I think this is a safe place. Is everybody okay if we just, in the interest of time, if we adopt this? Is this?
We need a thumbs up, so that sounds. This
I'm not hearing anybody scream no. So I'm thinking at this point, unless somebody says so very shortly on this call, I think we're going to go ahead and just say this sounds good.
Moving on, line 308. Public key infrastructure was trying to convey that this was in answer to a question about what are various servers. So various servers in the PKA context would be existing PKA roles like a certificate authority. Please stop me at any point if I'm, skip over something that someone is specifically worried about. 442 is where I changed the link from some expired Google Key Transparency project to this paper called Connix. Okay, line 528 authenticates key packages using the signature keys, includes the key packages and add proposals, encrypts the information needed to join the group info object, with an ephemeral key, then separately encrypts the ephemeral key with the init key for each key package. This was in response to a request to explain what the purpose of the key package was. If everyone could please take a moment to look at those 4 sentences and make sure
Yep,
that
sounds accurate to me.
Okay. Hearing no objections, moving down to line 650. This was talking about the security, the safety of the users of MLS. So I used provide both performance and security, e.g. integrity and confidentiality to its users.
Yeah, I think that's probably a better description. Okay. Safety is something else.
Yes. Okay, I referenced the MLS extensions draft in line 858. Oh yeah, here's a terminology one that would be good to get eyeballs on. 929. Delivering messages. It was previously delivering messages sent to a group to all members in the group. And so I changed it to delivering messages for a group to all members in the group. If anyone has any proposed rewording, please speak now.
I don't understand why you would change it, but I don't object to the change.
It's got to a group twice, basically. It's using the preposition to in two different contexts.
Do not care. 100% do not care.
Was this to clarify that internal group messages versus like external to a group message, or am I reading more into this than intended?
I think you're reading more into it. It was that people who said that they wanted to have, that they were trying to understand, are you sending the message to a group? Or are you sending you were sending it to individual members? They didn't really understand. And it's like, the purpose of the DS is to deliver messages which are addressed for a specific group and send them to the individual members. That's the function that the DS is offering, and that's why I changed the article, because they were confused.
Okay. Otherwise, seems good.
All right. There's another little minor privacy wording change in 1056 here. MLS is designed under the assumption that the transport layer is present to keep metadata private from network observers, while the MLS protocol provides confidentiality, integrity, and authentication guarantees for the application data, which could pass through multiple systems. Additional properties such as partial anonymity or deniability could also be achieved in specific architecture designs. Okay. Hearing no objections here. Okay, 1099, I changed MLS ciphertext to private message, and then also 1102. Yes, 1129. Recommendation. This is where we're talking about using anonymous credentials, and Roman had an allergic reaction to anonymous credentials because it's not defined except in a US government document, according to him. So I put use credentials uncorrelated with specific users to help prevent DOS attacks in a privacy preserving manner. Actually, I think somebody asked, change this to just to prevent DOS. Yeah, to help prevent DOS attacks in a privacy preserving manner.
I don't quite get what DOS attacks, how are DOS attacks connected here? Can you go into that a bit?
Basically, if you don't use, if there are no credentials required, then it's easy to do DOS attacks, because you can claim, you can issue as many requests as you want. But if you use credentials in order to authenticate yourself, then you can do limiting of the number of requests per authenticated user, but but that can reveal privacy, can reveal private information. So if you use anonymous credentials, then you get the property that you have to have an authentication credential, but you are still remaining anonymous. So in this case, this is credentials which are uncorrelated with specific users is the property that in the context of the section that comes slightly before this.
So this is about DOS attacks on the credential issuer.
So so if you click, there's a little blue line here. Hang on a second. There we go. In the centralized setting, DOS protection can typically be performed by using tickets or cookies which identify users to a service for a certain number of connections. It prevents anonymous clients from sending arbitrary numbers of group operations to the delivery service or MLS clients. So this is saying basically, instead of using a ticket or cookie which is correlated with specific users, use credentials which are uncorrelated with specific users in order to do this DOS prevention function that many systems already do. It's a little weird. Like, this is one of the places where the document is a little bit weird, because we sort of talk about things that a lot of folks do, and then we talk about adding a bunch of extra privacy protections that many systems do not. And here we're talking about, sort of trying to merge those two needs together in a single recommendation.
Okay,
Does anyone have any? Go ahead.
I think I kind of understand now what it is. So thanks for explaining.
Does anyone have any serious discomfort with this? Okay.
Nice fact that it's not specific to the terminology that could change.
So because it got flagged. So if
we changed it because it got flagged.
Rewording, then I think we should be good to go, rather than revisiting the whole section.
Yeah, and I think when you're reading it in the whole in context, I reread it twice from the beginning of that section, and in that context, it makes to me it made sense. So, all right.
So I'm not hearing anyone disagreeing with the specific rewording you're proposing, so I think we should be good.
So moving down to deniability, line 1251. Sort of, we're basically saying two contradictory things in the same paragraph. So roughly speaking, deniability is the opposite of non-repudiation, that a property that is impossible to prove to a third party that a message was sent by a given sender. So I reworded this to, deniability is not currently provided by the MLS protocol, but the protocol avoids constraints that would make it impossible to add deniability properties via extensions. Defining the specific requirements and resulting notions of deniability requires further analysis.
I think that the first sentence is a little bit problematic, simply because I've been going through a world of pain regarding deniability. So it's not clearly defined what deniability actually is. And so if we start with saying deniability is not currently provided, it implies that there is a crisp definition of what it is. Whereas before, it was a lot more vague, and that worked better.
Yeah, that sounds right to me.
Unfortunately, it was also contradictory.
How so?
Oh, sorry. What's the contradiction you're perceiving?
Like, was that a reaction to some feedback?
Yeah, there were actually, I can go dig out the specific comment, but
I think that would
Do
be
you
helpful.
do you remember
because
which AD this came from?
I do not. It would have been either Eric's or Roman's comments. Why don't, does one of either Raphael or Richard, do one of you want to go look for that comment while I carry on and we can come back to this one?
Yeah, I'm looking. I've got the ballot up, and searching for deniability doesn't return anything, but I'll keep looking.
Yeah, check Eric's comments. In any case, I can revert this if I need to. Okay. Most of these next ones are very. Okay. Yeah, there was a specific. Yep. You want to go ahead and read that?
So Paul said, I assume that some thought has gone into this, and a decision was made not to provide this as a core feature, likely due to the limited usefulness in, example given, a court system, where logged messages, deniable or not, are recovered. I assume it was not easy to add this property, and it was therefore mostly left out. Because of course it would be nicer to have it than not to have it. But I also vaguely remember Richard replying to that on list. So I'm not sure this mandates a change actually in the architecture. If that's really the comment we're talking about, maybe there's a second one that I didn't find now.
So you're proposing that I just revert this change?
Well, I think there's some consensus, at least for the beginning of the change. And let's look at the rest. Yeah, I think it would make sense to revert it completely, unless anyone has an opinion about it. Because the beginning definitely doesn't work.
So you're saying revert the deniability change? I would support that.
I don't have any problem with that. Okay.
The other thing to remember here is it is actually a comment. That's not a "you shall not pass" moment. So if we addressed it and we think it's fine, then we can go back and argue if he wants to change it. I don't think he will.
That's not a big deal. I'll do that.
Yeah.
Okay, moving along.
Thank you.
I changed. There are several instances of very or extremely, which I toned down. Those are pretty. I think this should be pretty easy to address. Okay, 1462. Recommendation: if the threat model of the system is against an adversary that can access the messages on the device without even needing to attack MLS, the application should delete plain text messages and ciphertext immediately after encryption or decryption. I changed this to as soon as practical after encryption or decryption. The comment was basically that this is like, you decrypted the message and delete it before you display it to the user,
This is giving me flashbacks of talking with lawyers. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, and then there was down in 1593, we're talking about correlating two different legal requests to get more information, more secret information. So I changed this to not note that with a legal request to ask the service provider for the push token associated with an identifier, it is easy to correlate the token with a second request to the company operating the push notification system to get information about the device, which is often linked with the real identity, etc. All right. Moving down to 1619, Brendan suggested changing centralized server to central server. I accepted most of his comments, but this one I left as is because there were at least half a dozen or more references, uses of centralized, and I didn't want to have to necessarily go back and change all of them and make sure they still made sense. Any heartbreak if I leave it as centralized, Brendan?
No, that was fine. I actually don't have the button to mark as resolved. So Sean, you can do that if you want, because I don't know why I don't have that button.
I think I can just not add it, and if somebody pushes the button to merge, then it just gets merged, even though that wasn't resolved. Oh, here, resolve conversation. Yeah, resolve there. Okay. Okay.
Wasn't that something Ecker chimed in on the list also? Like you don't need to be online to verify X509 these days in browser. Or do I completely misremember that?
Sorry, I lost you a bit, Raphael. Can you say that again, please?
Sorry, I think I saw a comment on the list from Ecker saying that these days in browsers you don't have to be online to verify an X509 certificate. Or I mean,
Yeah, just
that doesn't make much sense. You don't need to have additional network traffic to do that.
yeah, I
down
mean,
in
just
1652.
Yeah, or what's on the screen right now. Yeah, so browsers nowadays, they sync revocation information from CA. So there is network traffic at some point, but not necessarily at verification time.
Mm.
And also, like, the comment about why this was changed, I saw it earlier, it was on the screen from NAT, it says that this can be performed autonomously, and the AT was confused about the meaning of autonomous. And I think in the context of the document, autonomous was meant to mean requiring no interaction from the user, because the sentence afterwards is, in contrast, you can require the user to have to do something to verify the credential. Or you can use like X509, which doesn't require the user interaction. And I think that's what the text here should have been updated to say. Instead of saying X509 doesn't require network traffic, it should say X509 doesn't require user action.
Sounds good to me.
Okay, I can change that. I was under the impression that this was basically in regards to that they were looking at the diagram and wondering why there was not a connection of some line between the client and the AS for verification of credentials.
Do you know which graph that is?
I do not recall, but since it was only a comment, I'm okay with leaving that out. And I'm also okay with changing this for autonomously, e.g., without additional user interaction, because I think that is more important.
Okay, cool.
But if everybody thinks that we don't need to deal with the additional traffic, or we could say it's without user interaction or additional network traffic, I don't really care.
Automatically covers it.
You think which automatically covers it?
Yeah, I think if you take Brendan's I think it kind of addresses all the points.
Okay, without user interaction.
Yeah, I like the idea that Brendan suggested of having changing parentheticals to without user interaction.
Okay, I am committing that suggestion. Okay.
Come on.
All right, and okay, line 1700. Key transparency was mentioned twice in two different recommendations. And in this one, I just changed it to provide one or more out-of-band authentication mechanisms to limit the impact of an authentication service compromise. And I didn't specify key transparency. Are you okay with that, Brendan? It's still in the other recommendation to use key transparency specifically.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Okay. All right, and then last one, 1736 recommendation. Instead of always use encrypted group operation messages to limit privacy risks, I said use encrypted group operation messages to limit privacy risks whenever possible. And that's specifically because we have a lot of people who are using encrypted, unencrypted group operation messages for legitimate purposes. And we have a different recommendation that says, if you do that, do it inside of an encrypted transport. Is this okay with everybody?
Going once, going twice. Sold.
Okay,
Hey,
fantastic.
I only had one at the beginning that I threw in, which is one of my PKI nerds. Hold on, decline this. Is to change certificate authorities to certification authorities.
Okay, did you?
Yeah.
I threw in the minor grammatical note.
Commit suggestion. Changed.
Awesome. All right.
So that's the pull requests. So let's going back to the issues. I think that this substantially deals with, it deals with all of the discusses. Those two PRs deal with all of the discusses except for Zahaduzaman Sarkar. And so he has a discuss for whether we want to have an explicit recommendation for using secure transport for MLS. I'm totally comfortable with saying that when you're using MLS, you should just use a secure transport. But we have other places where we basically say you can use it. We don't make a comment about that, and we only say, the only thing we say is that if you want privacy, you should use a secure transport, and if you're using unencrypted handshakes, you should use a secure transport.
Well, didn't we just, like in that PR we were discussing, didn't that just have a recommendation to use secure transport whenever possible?
Yeah, that was encrypted.
Oh, it says use encrypted group operations. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So I particularly was thinking of Britta's application here. You know, if there's, I don't know if anybody has any heartburn with saying, you know, I thought that just saying just stick MLS inside of TLS or quick is pretty non-controversial in this group, but I didn't know if there was anybody who, and I wasn't also really sure exactly where to put this.
Yeah,
Yeah, speaking there, we have some applications where it would be very problematic to put it inside of TLS or Quick. And there's various other solutions for trying to ensure that transport. I think part of this issue here, we've described what we mean by secure transport. I went back to the other doc to ensure meaning there, because we're not really saying it's providing a lot of security aside from we want to protect metadata a little bit more and get actually a reliable transport. So trying to clarify that that's what we need out of it is probably the end goal.
Yeah. So Britta, I guess the first question is, do you care if the architecture document says, you know, in general, you should go and do this thing. You don't do it. And if you write an IETF document doing something different, you have an extra paragraph in your document explaining why it's safe that you do the thing differently than the recommendation in architecture.
yeah. I would just emphasize that like anything we put here is going to be advisory. So the only impact is what Rowan said, that you'd have to explain yourself at some point.
Yeah, I think if we are saying and make it explicit that it is said as an advisory note versus a should. And I know those two things very similar, but shoulds are actually interpreted more broadly as this is fundamental to the security of MLS. And that's not what we're really saying. We're saying that it helps improve the overall security, and it also gives us reliability of the transport. There's two different properties there that we're getting from containing it inside of TLS or Quick or something. One is the metadata and the other is the reliability. And if we're explicit about those goals and say, if you do this inside of TLS and do this inside of Quick, then you get the properties you're looking for. And just advise that that's an easy solution, then I think that's probably the best way forward. If the wording sounds like this should be done and is recommended as the main way forward, then I think we're going to run into issues, because then it kind of does sound like we've locked in the design to that choice.
Okay. Does Richard, do you have any? Do you have a proposed text? You know, like a single sentence or two sentences?
Let me just create some.
Done in other drafts where it says you could use secure transport example, TLS, or and then what you have in the next sentence is, and if you don't, then you need to explain how you provide these features. So I think there's a way out. To basically, I think, avoid Britta's concern, which is it's basically, if the document basically says to do this, you got to do one of these two transports, and they might use something else. Is what I'm inferring.
Here, I'm going to try and share.
Yep. Go ahead. So just going to take it. Or do I have to say yes? Grant screen. I guess I do. All right. I click the grant.
I think you might have to stop.
All right. Let me stop sharing.
I love how janky this tool is.
There we go. Here we go.
Started.
It's working.
All right, so I'm going to try and share just an editor window. Oh, let's see if this works. Sorry, I'm having to deal with permissions issues.
Yep.
It's 11 o'clock. Works. Okay, there we go. So like that would be my baseline starting point. But are there any like elaboration you'd want to put on top of that?
Would suggest a slight rewording here, maybe that we should use, for one, clarification, so maybe use secure transports that provide reliable delivery and protect metadata whenever possible, such as, and put the TLS or quick at the kind of end, maybe using the ED option like before. Kind of putting it less front and center as those are the solutions, and more as the solution needs to provide these things. And can we, instead of confidentiality, could we say metadata confidentiality?
Mm-hmm.
That looks great.
Okay, and of course, before you submit this as a real PR, we need it references for QLS and Quick.
Sean, tell me if I got these right. All right, I'll shoot that to you in wire, Ron, and you can drop it in.
Okay.
Excellent. Does that bring us to a close?
So is that going to go in an existing PR or a new PR?
I can either. Does anybody have any preference?
I do not.
Whatever's
I'm just tracking for the
easiest.
notes.
It's easier if I just stick it in, if I just slam it into the existing one here.
Yeah, then just do that.
So that'll go in
Sec here.
183.
Committing extra things in Git is really convenient. In GitHub is really convenient until I forget that I have, and then I have extra merge problems. Okay, and where do we want this?
I would say section 7.1 assumptions on transport security links would be the obvious place. Because that's the section about transport.
So MLS is designed to consider the following threat model. Attacker can read, write, and delete arbitrary messages. This departs from most threat models because blah, blah, blah. Main use of secure transport layer is to provide the already limited amount of metadata. Okay, after that, right after there.
Yeah, that looks good.
Okay. Okay, that's pushed. So that should be up there. Okay.
Apologies, my connection is
Oh.
critical this morning.
You know what? There is a formatting error now.
Oh, we can work that out offline.
Okay. Oh, forgot the bracket. Yeah.
All right.
So I think the main question before we let this go is whether we think we've addressed all of the discussed comments. Rowan, is that your assessment at this point?
That's my assessment. If you guys want to walk through, we can go through the issues and do that one at a time.
I think if you've gone through, I trust that evaluation.
Yeah, I mean, like at the end of the day, what's going to happen is we're going to publish, and they're going to tell us whether they think that we've done it or not, right? So it's if you know, if this was your first rodeo, Rowan, I might be a little worried, but it's not. So if you think you think we addressed them, then I'm going to go with that, and then we'll just have to see that we've addressed them to the satisfaction of the people that hold the discusses.
Okay.
And I appreciate you guys getting through this so quickly, because typically what happens, the longer you wait, the more vague everyone's memories get, and then they can't remember why they made the comment. So I really appreciate you guys plowing through this.
Yeah. Thanks.
Okay, so I guess Richard, I'll let you deal with whatever formatting issue and pushing the buttons to get them merged.
I fixed the formatting issue. So.
All right, cool. The I guess what I want to, that's great. Spin a new version, do whatever. I do know that Nick said he had some comments. They were all readability, so if they're not big issues, we can, you know, do them later or whatever, or during off 48. I don't think those will be a big deal. I know nobody wants to hear those, but you know, it'd be different if Nick.
I would prefer to handle those now before we send it off to the RC editor, just because I want all 48 just to be.
So I've let Nick know he needs to get them in.
Okay,
all right,
so
well. Yeah, so I guess that brings this to a close. Hopefully we'll be done with this. If not, we can always set up another meeting to go over whatever's left. If something comes back up, I'm hoping not, but apparently these two drafts brought a lot of interest. So I think that's good, actually. In any event. Okay, so I guess I have an administrivia question. I have not yet requested a session for IETF 116, thinking that there won't be a lot of people there, and it would mostly be remote, mostly be remote participants. And if we're going to do that because of the meeting venue and scheduling and all that stuff, I'd rather just have an interim, if that's okay, unless people think there's a real burning need to have an in-person meeting in Yokohama.
So who else is going to be there besides me?
Me.
I'm gonna be there, most likely, at least for some of it. Maybe Sean, you can explain, like, it seems that we are pretty much at the end of the process now. Like, what's left between now
Yeah, so
and an RFC?
Yeah, so basically after these documents get, formally approved by the ISG, they're essentially put in the RFC, what's called the RFC editors queue. And then what happens is mostly just copy editing. They're going to make sure that we did our references right, that the commas are in the right place. Like, they're going to do a lot of copy editing. And then the kind of document goes through. If any other large changes get proposed, that comes back to the working group and we can make those changes. We'll have to discuss those changes before we put them in the document. And if there are any big enough changes, we have to start this whole process over. I don't think there will be, but once it's in the RFC editors queue, it'll probably take 2 to 3 months before it pops out with an actual RFC number. And at the end, as the editors, all you really need to do is like start reading your email. When you see these auth 40, like the subject line will be auth 48. They really want the authors to, in 48 hours, turn around all their final little nits, their other little changes, and respond to
Which
them.
never happens, but
It never happens, but that's kind of what they're shooting for. I'd like 2 weeks to be kind of the turnaround time, and then after that it kind of gets published. So that would be version 1 of MLS done, and then I think we'd want to work on the federation and the extensions document, in whatever order, and then give it a little bit, like a couple of months, and then we can start entertaining version 2, because I know at least some of you have been thinking farther down the road.
so there are two things that I want to bring up. The first is that 2 to 3 months in the RFC editor queue is not going to happen because we have a dependency on MLS extensions for architecture.
Fair enough.
So I think that if for no other reason than to demonstrate that we are still, that we are not a moribund group, if everybody, for transparency, that we should request a meeting and talk about MLS extensions, just so that we have the minimal process, place where somebody can come and ask questions. They can find out who, there will be people, there will be outsiders. This is a useful thing for outsiders to be able to come and find out about MLS. And at the end of this month, there's going to be a workshop on the Digital Markets Act, where people are going to be talking about interoperability and MLS and things like that. And there's going to be a lot of sort of outsider interest. We need a place where people can find us in that way, who are not the people that normally attend these calls.
So going back to the extensions, do we have a formal dependency in the sense that we have to submit, like we have to go through a last call for extensions before we can move forward with architecture?
No. So assuming that the ADs clear their discusses after we, so we submit a new version, they clear their discusses, it's ISG approved, it goes into the RFC editor queue, but until extensions is approved, then it won't actually pop out as an RFC.
So what do you mean with extensions getting approved? That's the part that I really don't understand.
No, so hold on. So extensions in architecture is informational. So it can actually be published without, because federation is also listed there. So
sorry, go ahead, Sean.
I was just going to say that if extensions is not normative, it'll be, it won't have to get stuck.
Well, that's actually a good question. I mean, right now it's informational.
It's not. Yeah, they're informational. So if it goes in the RFC editors queue, Rowan, it will get published with an informational reference to a non-standards track document. that's doable.
But the question is whether we want that in the long run for extensions to only be informational. Is that a decision we have to take now? Or can we leave it as informational for the time being and then make it normative later
We have
on if there's agreement?
I think we want it standard track, right? That's the whole purpose of extension.
Yeah.
There's two informative things running around here. The document can be standards track. The critical thing for the blocking at the RFC editor level is whether the reference from the architecture to the extensions is a normative reference for an, and so that's okay. You can have the informative reference there, and the extensions doc can be standards track. Does that sound right, Sean?
Yeah, and to make things even easier, since the architecture document is informational, that's totally doable.
So yeah, maybe to give some perspective on that, there's been some low-key effort with Roel and Marta regarding Conrad and I regarding the extensions document to come up with yeah, at the very least some guidelines on how to develop new extensions so that they're safe and then they don't jeopardize the core protocol, etc. So that's still ongoing, and it's probably still going to be a while. And the document is going to be open for a while. So yeah, I just wanted to give you that perspective. Also not something that we need to discuss at or present actually at IETF-117. That's probably going to be too early. So aside from what Rowan brought up, I think that neither for the protocol or the extensions or the federation document for that matter, there is anything to present at IETF-117.
Yeah, I don't think, I mean, we can present extensions, we can talk about extensions. That's, honestly, that's as much as many of the smaller working groups are doing. And I think that's,
Yeah.
I think that justifies at least an hour. We can just do that.
So it's no skin off my nose. It's one button, and I'm already going to be there. It'd be great if more than 3 people showed up in person. But so I'll leave it to the group because I know that I don't think Richard's going to be there. Raphael, I think you're going to be there, but only long as it doesn't overlap with stuff for real crypto, right?
Exactly, that's the thing. So they're still like 1.5 hours apart, the two venues. So
right.
I can try to be there, but no guarantee.
Yeah, I mean, if you ask for a Thursday or Friday session, we should be fine.
Oh, I can definitely do that. I can swing. They'll probably love that actually. So all right. So I mean, unless I'm hearing any violent objections, I don't really have a problem putting in an hour request, and they'll Friday, and it will be probably Friday afternoon, but it'll work.
Yeah, that would work.
Okay, I'll go ahead and do that then. And you know, just be. I guess Raphael, that's the thing is that we just have to we have some presentations, or Rowan, you're gonna have to do it yourself to carry the weight. So
that's fine.
That's fine. That's what I figured. All right, cool. I will go ahead and put that in, and I think that might be it for today, unless anybody has anything else.
I have one more thing, which so we did not address the comments from the art area on architecture, and so I think that those are worth having a quick look at. So there are 3 issues, right? Extensibility. We don't have a good narrative describing why extensibility works. The second is, it is still totally unclear to people that your choice of how you implement the DS has huge effects on how the client works. I think this will come out in Mimi when we start to propose a specific MLS profile. But I think we do want to get ahead of this at some point. And so if anyone would like to collaborate on a draft, a non-working group draft about this, I would be happy to do this for the next IETF. And then finally, the inability of a client to remove itself. I was waiting for basically us to get ISG approval, but I talked with Richard about some ideas of how to improve client removal, because it really is a pain in the butt. It's not a great thing that the protocol is so hard to remove yourself.
And I don't disagree, but I don't think that, like, the crypto math allows it.
Well, I mean, we discussed ways that give you almost the same thing without changing the crypto at all. It's more about the operation of the clients. And
I see. Yeah, you can simulate it in some ways, yeah, like using some operational practices.
yeah. So yeah, I just wanted everybody to be aware of these three things, that like we're going to get questions about, like these questions are not going to go away. We should be prepared to talk about it, but I don't think we should do anything differently about the protocol. And the architecture document, to me, doesn't seem like the right place to go and have a long treatise on these three topics. If somebody disagrees and thinks that we should stick this in the architecture, that we should talk about these in the architecture document, I could go and do 3 separate PRs on these, or 2, if you have specific 1 or 2 of these that you think are important, I could do a PR for them. So yeah, like say, speak now or send me an email in the next week or 2 if somebody thinks we need a PR for these for architecture, but FYI.
I agree with Richard. It shouldn't go into the architecture document. Whether we need to address it in other documents, I'm not sure. Because there's an arbitrary number of questions that have a potential to always come up. But
Yeah, I was going to say she really did you a favor here by making this a comment, because I think she might be bringing this up as you say, Rowan, like hey, this isn't going to go away, but not blocking the document. So it seems to me that this might be lending itself to putting it someplace else.
Yeah, I mean, I was shocked that these did not come up as discusses, and also very grateful.
Yeah, she's not new. All right, cool. So I think what we're gonna do is the way I would probably try to address it is that we, collectively don't think they need to be specifically addressed here in the architecture document, but that it has given us food for thought for other documents. All right. Unless there's anything else. Okay, that brings us to a close. Thank you, Richard, for taking notes. Thank you for authors and everyone who showed up at early and late times to get this done. Again, thanks for your continued efforts, and hopefully we'll get this all knocked out and get this approved announcement sent as soon as possible.
Awesome.
All right, talk to you all later, and I'll see some of you in Yokohama.
all right, thank you, everyone. Bye.